In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. Folks, Joe Biden's campaign has disavowed Palestinian-American activist Linda Sarsour after she spoke at the Democratic National Committee Muslims and Allies virtual assembly. She appeared at the online meeting of Muslims who will be campaigning for Biden for president. Biden's campaign spokesman Andrew Bates said this in a statement to CNN, that Biden and the Democratic platform condemns Sarsour's views and opposes the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions movement. Sarsour has been involved in a number of controversies over her activism related to Israel. Also, of course, she's one of the co-organizers of the Women's March. She joins us right now. Linda, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. So this is... you were a surrogate for Senator Bernie Sanders. You were out there, you were advocating for him. This particular event, were you invited to participate in this event? And did that come from activists? It come from the party?
Thank you so much, Roland, for having me here today. What's really interesting about this particular controversy that I'm in, Roland, and you followed many of my controversies, is that it was unprovoked. Nothing actually happened. Was I a former surrogate for the Bernie Sanders campaign? I am an official delegate to the DNC. I am a delegate from the great state of New York. There was a Muslim delegate assembly, which means that all Muslim delegates are invited to it. I was asked by Muslim leaders and delegates at this event to speak. And one of the reasons why I was invited to speak is because to give legitimacy and credibility to the position that I hold, which many Muslim Americans and Arab Americans hold. There is not much enthusiasm in our community around Joe Biden. But as you know, I have been putting forth this framework that Joe Biden is the best opponent for us to have in the White House, and that we cannot defeat fascism. We have to defeat fascism, which is why I'm going to put my vote on Joe Biden. So
this thing came out like you just jumped up, like you jumped up on the stage. So you're saying you have credentials.
Oh, I am a credentialed DNC delegate. I was formally invited to speak on this Muslim assembly. I didn't protest. And in fact, Roland, the actual entire assembly situation is actually a video on the DNC website, and you can watch it. And in fact, you would laugh because you know me very well. I was actually quite bland and out of character. I didn't even mention Israel. I didn't say BDS. I didn't say anything. I didn't talk about Palestine. All I said was the Muslim Americans are swing voters. We are not a monolithic community. We are people who care about more than just national security and Palestine and Israel and foreign policy. We are actually a community that cares about healthcare and education and infrastructure and jobs and the economy. And that is really it. I was so out of character. It's like I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. I'm minding my own business, Roland, as you know. I moved with our dear sister, Tamika Mallory, to Louisville, Kentucky. I wake up in the morning yesterday to find this controversy. And here I am, not ignoring national politics, really putting my mind on something that I believe deeply in, which is to get justice for Breonna Taylor. And here goes the Joe Biden campaign throwing the most prominent Muslim American organizer under the bus. Not only am I the most prominent Muslim organizer in America, I'm also the leader and the co-founder of the My Muslim Vote campaign that is stationed in 6 states right now that Joe Biden needs to win in November. And I don't even know what to say. A white spokesperson, Roland Martin, was coward to the right-wing media, coward to the Republicans, literally. The original drama came from Borgen, who you know is a senior advisor to the Trump campaign. He's the one that was like, oh my God, Linda's speaking at the DNC. And immediately the Biden campaign cowered to the right wing and went to answer. And when they disavow my views, which is what they said they condemned my views, not from what I said at the DNC, just in general. That means they condemn the views of 99.9% of the communities that I come from who hold the exact views that I have.
So it has to be perplexing or difficult for you to sit here and go, okay, I'm a delegate, which means you actually got to vote on the nominee. You are active in trying to get the nominee elected. And his campaign is like, hell no, we want nothing to do with you at all. And
my views. They want nothing to do with my views, which means those views are not welcomed in the Democratic Party, which by default means that my whole community is not welcomed in the Democratic Party, because the views that I hold, Roland, are mainstream in the communities that I come from.
when your critics call you anti-Semitic, when they say you're racist, when they say you're a bigot, when they say you hate Israel, how do you respond?
My track record, Roland, is very clear. I have been working with Jewish American communities for the last 2 decades. They all have come out. Many of them have come out in solidarity each time that I've been attacked for being anti-Semitic. The bottom line is what I am is a Palestinian-American. What I am is someone who challenges the narrative around the state of Israel. I am someone, Roland, who is going to be unapologetic about who I am, just as Roland is unapologetically Black. I do not have to change who I am, change my views to appease anyone. And I don't actually require anybody else to do the same. So when I'm being called anti-Semitic, it's actually quite antithetical to everything that I am. And you know me very well. I'm a person where there is an injustice. That is where I am. I have raised money for desecrated Jewish cemeteries. I have stood in solidarity with Jewish communities. I have organized, in solidarity with Black people, with undocumented people, with LGBTQIA people. Wherever there is a fight, Roland, that is where I am. So you cannot claim something that does not match my character, does not match my work, my track record, literally my everyday. And everyone who knows me, Roland, knows exactly who I am and what I stand for. And I'm not going to cower. And the bottom line is, and you know this, I have never been an ambassador to the Democratic Party. I was never an ambassador for the Joe Biden campaign. I never worked for the Joe Biden campaign, nor do I want to work for it, nor do I want to ever have a job in the administration. I am trying to help defeat fascism. And if the Biden campaign doesn't understand why my voice is important, not only do I bring Arab American and Muslim voters to the table from states like Michigan, which we have to win in order to win this general election, I also bring progressives to the table. I bring Bernie supporters to the table. I am very well respected in the progressive movement. So if you want to throw under the bus one of the most prominent women organizers in the country, you do that, and you're going to have to lay in the bed that you made. The last thing that I'll say about this, in this segment, Roland, is that while I was watching the women's tribute, I don't know if you watched it yesterday.
I did.
Listen, forget Linda, put me to the side, right? Make believe that nothing ever happened to me and I'm great. Did you notice, Roland, that they were showing footage of all these women who won office, their victory speeches, these really emotional moments? Did you notice that 2 of the most prominent politicians in America, which are Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and Congressman Ilhan Omar, were nowhere to be found? So you wanted to show us everyone else that made history, but you left out the 2 Muslim women, you left out the Palestinian women. Then you want to disavow me, and then you show footage of the Women's March on Washington, and you in fact show my photo, like I'm in the video. So how does that make sense, Roland? How do you use my labor to act as if the Women's March somehow was connected to the Democratic Party, which it was not? Never been funded by the Democratic Party or sponsored by the Democratic Party. And then you literally delete and erase 2 of the most prominent politicians who come from these communities, also representing Midwestern states. Rashida's from Michigan, Ilhan's from Minnesota, and you need to win both those states in order to go to the White House. And on top of that, there is not one single Muslim American on top in the entire main stage. You will not see a Muslim American in the main stage of the DNC. Why is that, Roland? Why are we a community directly targeted by Trump? The bigotry that we've experienced as Muslim Americans in the last 20 years, especially during the last 2016 campaign into now. And for some reason, this particular brand of the party and the Biden campaign have erased us like we don't exist. Okay, then I don't know how you're going to ask me for my vote if I don't exist, if my community doesn't exist.
But before I go to my panel with their questions, I do have to ask you this, and that is, and a lot of people did not realize this, but in 2000, George W. Bush was very aggressive in courting Muslim voters. Grover Norquist played a huge role in organizing that. Bush raised money from Muslims. He got a significant number of their votes. You made the point that Muslim voters are swing voters. Fact of the matter is, the fastest growing segment among Muslims in America are African Americans.
Absolutely.
So with this whole deal here, do you believe that the Biden campaign is potentially turning off Muslim voters and now saying, okay, are we not going to examine every single one of you and what you support and who you backed before?
Oh, it's not maybe. It already happened. I mean, every major Arab American and Muslim American organization has sent out letters publicly and privately to the Biden campaign at this moment. There are conversations happening in the campaign. When you say to someone, if I say to you, Roland, that I condemn all of your views and you carry views that 99% of the people in your community hold, that means we're all not welcomed. And so my community right now is absolutely enraged. They are outraged right now. And what they're asking for from the Biden campaign is a retraction. They're asking for an apology, and they have to commit to a big tent party where we have the understanding that unity is not uniformity, and that the reason what makes us different than the Republican Party is we are not monolithic, and there is no way that we can have a party where we are all going to agree. And if my views and the views of my community are not welcomed in the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party is not going to be a successful party. Muslim Americans are swing voters in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Virginia, in Florida, and in Texas, and in Minnesota. Ilhan Omar represents the city of Minneapolis. And right now we just saw a poll that came out where Donald Trump and Biden are literally tied in a place like Minnesota, and Biden is only ahead of Trump by 3% in the state of Michigan. We cannot repeat 2016 over. So my community right now is outraged. I'm going to still tell my community, look, we got to defeat fascism, but I cannot convince people and do the work and the dirty work of the Biden campaign. They have to step up. They have to say they made a mistake, and they have to apologize. And then hopefully my community will come around after that.
Question first off, Erica.
Yes, great speaking with you, Linda. This is Erica. And my question for you is, prior to this happening, what was the temperature of Muslim Americans and folks that you reached out to prior to this and then post?
I appreciate that, Erica. To be quite honest with you, lots of people in the Muslim American and Arab American communities have specific things that they care about, in addition to issues that other people care about, like health care, et cetera. Majority of Muslim Americans support Medicare for all. Biden does not support Medicare for all. A majority of Muslim Americans want to abolish agencies like ICE, which were created after 9/11, really to target Muslims and those that were perceived to be terrorist threats, and they want to abolish ICE. Biden does not support that. We also have seen surveys coming out of the Institute for Social Policy Understanding on issues of police reform and defunding police, et cetera, which a lot of Muslim Americans support. And also when it comes to foreign policy, the Muslim American community is a very pro-Palestinian community. They support human rights of the Palestinian people. I mean, it's not something that unfortunately Biden has a track record in. So the temperature check was, okay, Linda, we don't like Biden. We don't think he represents our values. We don't think life is going to be better after, better with a Biden administration. It may not get worse, but we don't know if it's going to get better. And my framing that I have been able to bring people along, people have shared my videos. I have been on local, Muslim media, blogging, where I've said to people, but let's make a decision here. What if we say that we want Biden to be our opponent in the White House? And people literally, Erica, were going along with my argument, saying that Biden would be our opponent. We would build a movement under him. We would push him to do what better and do better. And now they're like, if we can't hold the Biden campaign accountable when he's the candidate and we can't even get some respect candidate, how are we going to get respect and hold him accountable when he's the actual president of the United States of America? And to be honest, Erica, I don't actually have an answer to those people in my community at this particular moment.
Reese.
Hi, Linda. I don't really have a question, but my comment is just that it sounds to me like the Biden campaign needs to work on their cultural competency in matters like this and how they approach different communities instead of a knee-jerk reaction. And so I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing and continuing to push through and outreach to your community, despite the fact that there are some ideological differences there.
I appreciate that. And I think just so folks understand, Roland, is that the man who's the director of rapid response is a white man. And I don't use that necessarily in a derogatory way, but to your point about cultural competency is that, trust me when I tell you, if it was a black woman or a person of color that was there, They would not had a knee-jerk reaction that would require them to throw a Muslim American woman in hijab, who's Palestinian, who's part of the larger movements that we need to win this election, under the bus. Someone of color who had the expertise would have been more strategic, more logical. And the real thing that I wanted them to do, just to be clear, I don't need the Biden campaign to agree with our community, to agree on our issues. What I would have said if I was the director of rapid response and asked the question about Linda Sarsour participating in the DNC, my answer would have been, to be clear, Linda is a DNC delegate from the great state of New York. And while we do not agree with Linda and on these issues, the Democratic Party is a big tent, and we welcome people to have spirited debate, because that is what makes democracy great. That's all. They could have said they disagreed with me. They could have said they disagreed on the issue of BDS, on the issue of, Palestine, Israel, and that would have been totally fine with me. I would have been totally fine, because I already know that. I am not naive to think that the Biden campaign actually agrees with me on probably 90% of the things that I believe. The fact that they thought that the knee-jerk reaction was to throw important swing voters under the bus, a marginalized community that has been quite even more marginalized in the last 20 years, and more so under the Trump administration. The first executive order, Roland, you remember I was on your show about this. The first executive order put forth by the Trump administration was the Muslim ban.
Right.
That was the first piece of paper that he signed. So the fact that we're going to throw the entire Muslim American community and Arab American Palestinian communities by saying we condemn these views in our party. First of all, it's not true, because a majority of Democrats have moved exponentially on the issue of Israel-Palestine. And they have also, many in the Democratic Socialists and a lot in the progressive wing of the party have embraced the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions movement as a nonviolent movement to resist the human rights violations that the state of Israel commits against Palestinians. So the Democratic Party needs to catch up with us. I'm not trying to catch up with the Democratic Party, because they're 20 years behind me. And so the question is, can they do that in a very short period of time so we could win this damn election and defeat this damn fascist in the White House?
Greg Carr.
Thank you, Roland. And thank you, Sister Linda, particularly in this moment for relocating to Louisville, you and Sister Tamika. My young brother, Sean Ali Waddell, who's down there, who's a Howard student. I know he's been down there with y'all. He's telling me he loved it so much. And I saw Nick came down last week with you all, Nick Cannon. So thank you on behalf of all of us who are fighting for freedom. I'm going to try to talk and ask you this question as if there are no cameras. So we know there's a different conversation when cameras, right? But pragmatically, this fear-driven Democratic Party still trying to chase those three imaginary Trump voters. Whatever you do, whatever you do, they're going to hang the Muslims, hang the black, hang everybody on them anyway. So, and I love the way you frame this. He's the best opponent to have in the White House. When they don't roll it back, because it looks like they really are trying to replicate 2016. When they don't roll this back, what do we need to do to prevent any more erosion so that we don't end up with this fascist in the White House? I mean, I don't know that you're prepared to be able to have that kind of conversation with us now here, but what's the step when they don't? Because that wasn't an accident, just like leaving Ilhan and Rashida and them out. That's no accident. They're chasing them imaginary white voters who will never vote for them. So what's the strategy when they don't roll it back? Don't apologize.
I mean, the bottom line here is they're going to have to reap what they sow, and they also have to lay in the bed that they made. But it's also bigger than the myself and my communities. What I've been telling folks, and it's a strategy that I hope works, it may work, it may not work. I said, listen, you may not be enthusiastic about Joe Biden being your president, but you know this and I know this. There are young black people across this country running for office, running for congressional seats. We have people of color and immigrants and women right now who also need to win those races in November. We have an opportunity, as you know, in a place like South Carolina for Jamie Harrison to take out Lindsey Graham. Like, we really have a lot of great races that we need to be focusing on. So what I'm telling a lot of people in my community, I said, listen, find a local candidate that really inspires you, someone that really aligns with your values and principles. Knock those doors, do the text messages, do whatever it is that you need to do, donate the money. And what I hope happens is that it trickles from the bottom up. If we can get higher voter turnout around some of these candidacies in these important swing states, that may mean that when you go to the polls, we hope that people are voting up and down the ballot. So not only do they vote for the candidate that they love, but they're also saying, well, my candidate is on this party line. Maybe I should just go up and down the ballot, which is what I'm saying to people. That is one strategy that I'm holding. I don't know if it's going to work. I do think that the Biden administration has to apologize to Muslim and Arab American communities, only because, number one, it's the right thing to do, but also because we are swing voters. Like the state of Michigan, Roland knows this very well. It's home to the highest concentration of Muslim American voters in the entire country. We have large populations in California, in New York, and they are more than the one in Michigan, but Michigan is the most highly concentrated. You cannot win an election without Michigan. You don't need New York. You don't need California. You cannot win a race without Minnesota. You can't win a race without Virginia and Pennsylvania and North Carolina and Florida. And this is where our community is concentrated. We are a very diverse community. People in my community don't look just like me. We are South Asian. We are Arab American, Southeast Asian. We're African American. We are African immigrants. We are literally represent the globe. And the campaign just snubbed us. And so the question is, are we a community that is only about acceptance, or are we also about respect? We have self-respect. And our community right now is waiting, and they have been demanding. They wrote public letters. The campaign knows how outraged our community leaders are right now. And these are the people that are supposed to move the people. And as a leader of the My Muslim Vote campaign, it's going to be, I was already an uphill battle. And the mountain was already high for me to climb. And now the mountain just got really slippery. Somebody just dumped a bucket of soap on the mountain, and I have to figure out how to get to the top. And that is what the this campaign has done. Just made our work just much harder than it already is.
Linda Sarsour, we certainly appreciate you joining us to give your perspective on this issue. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding for services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please, take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov.